All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a really big topic, the Holy Spirit. It's obviously a huge concept in Christian faith, right? So we're going to break it all down, where the idea came from, its ancient roots, and what it's supposed to mean for believers today. And we're basing all of this on a really detailed theological teaching.
So let's start with the big question. What is the Holy Spirit? I mean, really? Well, to get to the bottom of it, the source material we're digging into says we've got to go way back, like way, way back, to an ancient Hebrew concept that is pretty much the foundation for this whole idea.
Okay, so this teaching kicks off by looking at the original Hebrew word for spirit. And this isn't just any word. It's a term that's deeply tied to the creative power and, the very presence of God. And that word is ruach. Now, getting a handle on this word is absolutely crucial because it doesn't just mean one thing. It's super versatile. It can mean wind, breath, mind, or spirit. The best way to think about it is as this dynamic, creative, life-giving force of God. And it's so cool when you see how Ruach pops up all over the Old Testament. I mean, check this out. It's the Spirit of God hovering over the waters, back in Genesis. It's the breath of life in every living thing. It's the Spirit of the Lord that comes upon leaders like kings and prophets. And it's even God's gracious Spirit that guides people. It's just one word, but wow, look at all those powerful ways it's used.
Okay, so now that we have this foundational idea of Ruach, let's follow the thread, because this concept actually leads us straight to a major Old Testament prophecy. And this isn't just any prophecy. It's one that tackles a really fundamental human problem and says, hey, we're going to need a new kind of spirit here. So, according to the teaching, the prophet Jeremiah foresees this massive shift, a completely new covenant. We're talking about moving away from laws written on stone tablets, external rules, to something totally different. A law written directly on people's hearts and minds. It's a game changer, really, from just following a code to having a real personal connection. And this verse right here from Jeremiah, it just nails the why. It points to the core problem this whole new covenant was supposed to fix. The source material really emphasizes this. The human heart, left to its own devices, it's deceitful, it's tricky. It makes trying to perfectly follow a bunch of external rules pretty much impossible. So, what's the solution? A new spirit. This was the promise. And this spirit is presented as the key, the one thing that would actually make it possible for people to get it, to understand God's will, and to live it out. Not because they have to, but from the inside out. All right, that whole prophecy sets the stage perfectly for when we jumped into the New Testament. Because this is where the whole concept gets way more personal. We see it show up in some really specific promises that Jesus makes to his followers right before he leaves. The sermon we're looking at really zooms in on this promise from the Gospel of John. And pay attention to that word another, because in the original Greek, it's super specific. It doesn't just mean a different one. It means another of the exact same kind, the same type, the same strength as Jesus himself was for them. That's a huge deal. So what was this helper's job description? Well, it was a big one. 4 key things, really. First, to be with them forever, not just for a little while. Second, to actually dwell with them and in them. Third, to teach them, everything. And fourth, to be a constant reminder of all the things Jesus had said. Pretty comprehensive, right? Okay, I know what you're thinking. This sounds totally backward, right? Jesus says it's actually better for him to go away so this helper can come. Why? Well, the sermon explains that this was actually a necessary step. His physical departure was the thing that had to happen to make way for this universal, internal helper, the Holy Spirit, to be sent to all of his followers, everywhere. Okay, let's recap. We've looked at the ancient foundation, that word ruach. We've seen the prophecy about a new spirit, and we've heard the promise Jesus made. So where does this all lead? This last part of the teaching explains the practical goal of it all, an active, hands-on, participatory relationship with God. And there's another key word for this section, this time from the Greek koinonia. Now, you might see this translated as fellowship, but the source material makes it clear that it's so much deeper than that. It's really about a rich, interactive relationship. It's about actively participating in a shared life together. And this is a great way to picture the difference. The kind of relationship we're talking about here isn't supposed to be a monologue, Not just you talking at God in a one-way prayer. No, it's framed as a constant dialogue, a two-way street of talking, and just as importantly, listening, like walking alongside a guide.
And this koinonia, this active communion, isn't just supposed to be some private, internal feeling. The teaching is really clear that it's meant to spill out into real, tangible actions. That means sharing spiritual stuff, like insights and visions, with the community, sure. But it also means sharing your material blessings with people who need them. It's got to be both spiritual and practical.
And really, that's the heart of it all, the central takeaway from this teaching. The Holy Spirit isn't presented as some distant, cloudy, abstract idea. It's supposed to be the direct enabler of a daily, interactive, back-and-forth relationship with God. And that leaves us with a really big question to think about, doesn't it? If that's the goal, what does an interactive relationship with the divine actually mean for how a believer lives their life day in and day out?